delicious.
You're live, man. Okay. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast, the only local, politically conservative, liberty-minded program here in Kootenai County, where we expose the political power players, politicians, and those pesky influencers. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Also, those phone calls. I'll put the number up later in the program because I just forgot what it was. I don't have that ticker going at the bottom of the screen, but we'll put it up for you. Anytime you want to leave a comment, you can go ahead and do that right there in the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. And this is the most important thing. If you're here watching live with us, you want to be sure to share this program right now to your page or profile so we can have more of you joining in with us live, joining in on the conversation. And then remember, if you're listening back on our podcast, well, you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. But for those of you joining us on the podcast, remember to tune in live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And a reminder, opinions expressed are ours only, not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, or affiliates. Now, here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Good evening. How you all doing? I'm excited for tonight's show. Lots to cover. I say this almost every single week. I think I need to write down
lots to cover.
Official intro the way you do. But to all our friends throughout the Fruited Plains, all the way from right here in Kootenai County and the surrounding region into Montana, South Idaho, wherever you happen to be joining us, welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise show. Now, for those of you that aren't watching live, you can join us on YouTube or the replays on X, Instagram, and of course, our audio-only podcast, wherever you get your podcast delivered. We have some housekeeping that we're going to do very shortly, but we're going to talk tonight about Pride and Prejudice, or maybe it should be called Pride and Pride.
Pride and Pride. That's what we got. Pride and Pride.
What happens when a tort claim is finally filed against the KCRCC debacle? We're going to talk about that, the flag law, and more KCRCC vetted members behaving poorly right here in Kootenai County.
If you've not yet entered to win our Liberty Without Compromise premium embroidered snapback hat, I want to invite you to do that. I'm going to show you where you can find it here on our website. Right here on the home page, click this button, Enter to Win, and you're going to fill out the form on that page, and then there are some additional things you can do for an entry to win. There's a look there at that hat. Dan's been sporting that around town.
Mine's finally broke in.
Yeah, you broke it. You do always got to break in a new hat. Mm-hmm. So you can fill out the form here at the bottom of the page, and then some instructions on some additional things you can do to get extra entries. And that is not currently available in our online store. So the only way to get your hands on one of those hats is to enter to win.
Enter to win. Mm-hmm. Housekeeping. As many of you know, I am a big proponent of free speech. I believe that free speech is exactly that. It is free, and government shall not infringe upon it. Doesn't mean that you don't pay the social consequences sometimes for the speech that you may drop, certain people's way. Remember that our platforms, you are a guest when you come on to our platform to talk. This isn't the government. And yes, we will personally, if you become obnoxious, if you become inflammatory, if you become accusatory, or if you lie, and you've been warned, expect that you're going to get your just desserts back. You may not like my response. In fact, I hear oftentimes, how dare a candidate for sheriff address me in that way? As if I'm supposed to somehow kiss your ass because you're saying something inflammatory or wrong or a liar. And in this case, April Lee, you're on notice. You have exactly one more chance. If you come on to any of our pages one more time and you lie, and your current lie, which is the same repeated lie that you have been saying over and over again, that I never served as a law enforcement officer, Well, you are a liar. In fact, you're the worst kind of a liar because you've been told numerous times the error of your ways, and you've decided that you're going to disregard that you're going to continue and double down because I dare call myself the Idaho sheriff, that the entire mass out there is being led to believe.
You know, I told her the Secretary of State was okay with that marketing, that they were perfectly okay with it. And she continues to want to entertain the argument that you never served as a peace officer.
Yeah.
So how dare you? And so today I was having a back and forth with good old April Lee and said, look, stop lying.
Yeah.
Well, what am I lying about? So I said, all the specifics, served as a peace officer. And it sounds like what she's really taking issue with is reserve. Aha, gotcha, reserve. Yeah. And I said, okay, so he served when on duty
for 12 years at no cost to the community, while I took on the same responsibilities, the same liabilities, the same exposure when I strapped on my Kevlar vest, put on my uniform and my gun belt, and got into my own single unit police cruiser and took calls for service. So April, how dare you? One more time and you're out, and I will make you famous. So you better shut your pie hole and you better do it post haste.
I think maybe what she really is taking issue with is that you did all of those things, but rather than receiving a paycheck, you gave back to your community to the tune of about $250,000.
Yes.
And so if that's the issue, I guess, please let us know. You can join in on the comment section on whichever platform you might be watching. You can call into the program at 208-366-4671 if you want to duke it out with Wilson right now and tell him what a liar he is. And we're dishing it right back at you.
Now, what about our op-ed pieces?
Yeah, we love to take op-eds to publish or to be considered for publication at libertywithoutcompromise.com. There is a button to submit your op-ed pieces. There's so much going on in our state and in our community here in Kootenai County right now that a lot of you want to have a voice outside of the comment section, which I would argue is the best way.
Yeah.
Let's see, memorialize it or for posterity. Write your thoughts out. Take a little more time than that. The keyboard warrior, the keys in flames approach, and let us know, share those thoughts, and have the ability to distribute that to others across multiple platforms and for publication on the site. So you can do that at libertywithoutcompromise.com.
We are about just that, liberty. Where do we get that phrase, liberty without compromise? It was birthed out of my race for Sheriff of Kootenai County in 2024. As I was talking with a podcast host, I lamented about the fact that we need men and women who will uphold liberty and uphold liberty without compromise. And that's exactly what we mean. Many people throw the word liberty around. They use it, and I don't think they always quite understand what that means. But if we go back and look at the true sense of the word liberty, if we look at its meaning in relation to our founders, those framers that wrote the Declaration of Independence, that wrote the Constitution and our beloved Bill of Rights, well, you would know that our founders, when they were convening and drafting our Constitution, they quoted more often than any other source a man that lived, a philosopher that lived about 100 years prior to them in France, John Locke. And John Locke was a philosopher who wrote a book called The Two Treatises of Government. And in it, he argued that all men are created equally in value under God, and that man should operate under the laws of nature. And as a equal creation, every man, like animal, has the right to life. He has the right to liberty, and he has the right to property, aka the pursuit of happiness. But it is liberty that gives us the ability to secure our life and our property, whether it is tangible property or whether it's that intellectual property that you have. So we, as Americans, must hold our liberty extremely dear above all else. And that is what we are here at Liberty Without Compromise to discuss. Now, we discuss a lot of things right here in North Idaho. That is where the majority of our focus is. We focus a little bit on national events and some international, But primarily, we are talking about things that affect us right here in Kootenai County, uncovering corruption, impropriety, things that local so-called conservative leaders are doing while they have the majority without any accountability. But above all else, we talk about liberty, and the basis for our liberty is the founding of this country. Now, I also am a staunch, devoted follower of Jesus Christ. I have been a follower of Christ since I was very, very young, and I continue to this day. But I understand that as a Christian, that my government is not my God and it is not heaven. And so what I attempt to do with Dawna, when we talk about these things of liberty, we try to bridge the gap between the difference of government and what government's function is under the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and what those of us who are people of faith, what we're contending for as well, and those areas, those firewalls that were set up in our form of government to prevent people of any kind of one religion bullying or superseding anyone else's. In the words of James Madison, he believed that we individually are accountable to our God individually, and therefore government has no right sponsoring or establishing any certain religion. So that is kind of a little primary for those of you who may just be joining us for the first time. This is what we strive to do on Liberty Without Compromise. Now, one of the things that we have been talking about quite a bit is the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, which is the party head for the Republicans right here in Kootenai County. And it's not a surprise. It's not a secret that I have been at war with certain factions, and I'm going to make certain that I say that very carefully again, certain factions of the KCRCC. And it stems from their attempted assassination of me as a candidate early on in the sheriff's race of 2024, what led me to eventually run as an independent as I discovered those in power, those that I absolutely oppose. Brent Reagan, the chairman of the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, who also happens to be the chairman of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Under his leadership, my personal belief, they are doing things that Republicans should be doing. They're accountable to no one, and I'm at war with them. They started this war, and I will bring this war to them until they decide they want peace. I am going to say this very carefully again. There are many people inside the KCRCC that are dear friends of mine, people that I respect and love. So make it be clear, let it be known that when I'm attacking the KCRCC, I'm attacking that leadership that is currently in the wrong, not those that are there to help participate in representing their local communities and, in some cases, public offices. So there's my little diatribe for the day. But we're going to speak about the KCRCC's inability to vet good people. We've heard it said over and over again. Their vetting process, while it was originally started by Jeff Tyler as more of, I think it was, opposition research, but it has grown now into Brent Reagan and his friends. They decide who they want to be on the ticket, and then they use the full power of the KCRCC to help those individuals in a primary defeat any other candidate, and it has been highly effective. But we know that they are not picking necessarily the best of the best. They're picking those that swear allegiance solely to Brent Reagan and the KCRCC. Personal opinion, again, everything that I'm saying right now is personal opinion based on experience. Well, there's a candidate that has reached the local news, the regional news. Somebody that was vetted by the committee all the way back in 2021, who ran for the school board, Coeur d'Alene School Board. And we're going to throw up slide number 1 right now.
Yeah, and I'm just you're gonna give me a minute here because I didn't
pull them in.
Yeah, I do have it right here.
So just this weekend, Allie Anderton, I don't know if it's Allie or Allison, in the police reports that I read, her name was listed as Allison, but Allison was arrested early Easter morning and cited for driving under the influence and possession of drug paraphernalia, and has resigned from the Coeur d'Alene School Board effective immediately. Coeur d'Alene School District officials said in a news release the board received Anderton's letter of resignation early this morning. The trustees thank Trustee Anderton for her service and dedication to our students in District 271, the district said in its news release. Who is this person? Well, she is somebody that passed the vetting committee of the KCRCC. I read the police reports. I don't have the police reports to show to you all right now, but what she was arrested for was not only being intoxicated, DUI, but she admitted to smoking crack cocaine inside aluminum foil. And she admitted to using U.S. currency to smoke cocaine as well. I understand substance abuse. I'm not bagging on her for the struggles that she is facing right now. But what I am going to take exception to is this is another example of the KCRCC choosing poor candidates. I've had information on other candidates that we will probably be sharing in the not too distant future, and some very troubling backgrounds of these individuals that needs to be brought out. I will not bring any of those names out, though, until I have my proof to show you. But the KCRCC has lost its way, and they need to completely clean house. Brent Reagan must be replaced. Most of that board, as it currently exists, must be replaced, and a new format on how candidates are supported locally needs to happen. And I think that the KCRCC, as the months go on, are going to be continually exposed to extremely poor decisions and poor performance that Brent Reagan officially owns.
Was there more to this? I know there was a second. Okay, there was a second slide, so I didn't know if.
What was the second slide?
I don't know.
I probably mislabeled it.
All right. So we had some things come out in the spokesman review, the tort claim filed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. The word's going around.
So the tort claim, of course, is from the, February 22nd legislative town hall that they were hosting, the KCRCC hosting at the Coeur d'Alene High School. Now, despite the fact that there was a known threat against state legislators, there was a known quantity of disruptors that they had anticipated were going to show up to this town hall. Bob Norris, acting sheriff, as has been publicly stated, he was acting in his official capacity at this town hall, failed, along with the leadership of the KCRCC, namely Brent Reagan, to secure additional uniformed officers, whether that is Coeur d'Alene Police and or Kootenai County Sheriff's Office deputies, to be on scene in order to maintain the rule of law and order. And so, as we know, there was heckling that went on, and a known Democrat candidate, Teresa Bornpole, was heckling the speakers. The MC, Ed Baharana, engaged her back. She responded in kind, and immediately Sheriff Robert Norris approached her from across the auditorium, immediately told her that she had to leave without really the legal authority to do so, put his hands on her 2 times to try to pull her out of her seat, threatened to pepper spray her, never once told her that she was under arrest or that she was trespassing, when he, because of his weak stature and his inability tactically to perform defensive maneuvers for extraction, when that failed, he demanded from Lear Asset Management security agents that were present for crowd security that were unmarked, bunch of guys wearing 5'11" pants and tops. He demanded one of their phones so that he could begin recording Teresa Bornpole, and then he directed those security agents to begin grabbing her, extracting her from her seat, and they eventually did so. They pulled her into the aisle and manhandled her and eventually pulled her out of the auditorium. There are several other individuals that were victims of Bob Norris and Lear management. When you look at the final Coeur d'Alene Police Department's reports, they referred to the prosecuting attorney, who eventually did file charges against Lear Asset Management, Paul Truett, and several of his security agents, 4, I believe, in total, as well as it indicated that Sheriff Robert Norris participated in the injuries received by Teresa Bornpole because of his direction and the actions of those that he directed. Now, while these individuals have been charged locally by the Coeur d'Alene prosecuting attorney, people have been asking, well, where's Bob Norris's charge? One hand, everybody's rejoicing, saying, hey, see, the sheriff is exonerated. He was acting lawfully. We've contended over and over, myself, that what he did was unlawful and a violation of Mrs. Bornpole's rights. You can go all the way back to February when I stated this. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason that Sheriff Bob Norris has not been charged is because it takes a lot more than a local prosecuting attorney for misdemeanor type crimes to be investigated and charged. That's usually left in the state of Idaho to either a prosecuting attorney locally that would convene a grand jury, although I think that's pretty tough because Stan Mortensen, the existing prosecuting attorney, is very close with the KCRCC. They appointed him for the vacancy before he was reelected just this last year. So he was the appointed, the choice the KCRCC chose to be appointed for a vacancy of the existing prosecuting attorney. And Stan went on this Law and Order campaign whirlwind tour with Bob Norris, Brett Surplus, and Sleepy Dale Gibney.
Yeah, their slogan was your Law and Order candidates. Yeah. Before you go further with this, are you, because you are receiving this accusation, this is alive and well in social media circles as we speak. Are you, because you're dogging on Sheriff Bob Norris and his ability to do what he did in that town hall forum, are you siding with a Democratic agitator? Are you part of that problem?
No, and I'll tell you why. So my position is this. You can equally recognize that somebody is doing something that is wrong and at the same time say that the actions of the sheriff were equally wrong. So for an example, there are procedures set up by the Supreme Court on how law enforcement engages the public with the objective reasonableness standard is the golden rule. Civil rights cases, First Amendment cases, case law. While I do not condone and I would condemn Ms. Bornpole's stature and her actions at that event, as was shown in the police report, if you're going to apply this standard of disruption to Bornpole, then you have to equally do that towards anybody else that was cheering and disrupting, because in Supreme Court First Amendment rulings, it has to be equally applied. Either you allow zero disruptions or you allow all disruptions. And in this case, case law is going to show that Robert Norris acted inappropriately and violated Mrs. Bornpole's civil rights. Also, remember that Bornpole had heckled, berated, in his own words, Bob Norris several months earlier. And in an email that I obtained during my campaign last year, I have an email where Bob Norris has answered, responded in an email to Democratic Central Committee Chairman Evan Koch. And he said, I'm disappointed in Teresa Bornpole, who berated me while I was there. So a sitting elected sheriff, minus exigent circumstances, serious felonies, somebody about to be seriously harmed and or killed, you have a duty to act. But this isn't Mayberry. Bob Norris, as a sheriff who should represent everybody's rights, as found in the Bill of Rights, namely the First and Fourth Amendment at this location, he decided that he was going to be political. I think it's going to be easy to show in the tort claim that's come out that he had a prejudice against Bornpole that is documented, and he did not give her enough time to comply. He didn't give her lawful commands. Everything that Bob Norris did, he bungled, despite the fact that we have been told for well over 5 years now about his tactical and professional prowess. So back to whether I am siding with a liberal Democrat. No, what I am siding with is the rule of law, which is supposed to be equally applied to all people. Now, reverse this. If this was a Democrat-held event and Republicans were yelling, because I know you Republicans, you like to have your voices heard too. And if you are equally yelling and the same thing happened to you by a Democrat sheriff, what would you do? This whole thing could have been avoided if Brent Reagan and Bob Norris had put uniformed officers inside that auditorium. And so, yes, I am forever going to do the same thing, which I continually said during the campaign. I will stand up for everybody's rights as found in the Bill of Rights, regardless of what your ideation, what your background, what your beliefs are. Everybody gets protected equally under the law. Now, this tort claim, we're going to show this slide real quick.
I'm going to jump in, keep that in mind, because I want you to talk more about the tort claim, and you're going to tell us here in a minute, is Bob Norris completely out of hot water because he wasn't named in this tort claim?
Yeah.
But to those of you just joining us, you're watching the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. Your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. You can join in on the comment section here. And then again, be sure to share this feed. It's live, so share it to your page or platform so more of us can join in on the program. Back to that tort claim.
Yeah, so it's my belief that we'll read this tort claim real quick here if you have that slide up. That's from the Sportsman Review yesterday. Teresa Borenpol filed a tort claim or a legal complaint that puts other parties on notice for a civil lawsuit in Kootenai County on Monday. According to a news release, Borenpol alleges her constitutional rights were violated by the security team and Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris when she was dragged out by her arms for jeering the MC at the event. She goes on to say, at the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, Coeur d'Alene High School, February 22nd event, she was forcibly removed by men in black jackets at the direction of Norris's video from the event shows. Again, these security guys were not marked despite the fact that the law required security agents or guards to be clearly marked front and back. And the school resource officer warned Paul Truett from Lear Asset Management just a few days prior to this event of that law and that requirement, but they were not identifiable. Coeur d'Alene police officers previously recommended some battery and false imprisonment charges against 5 men working for Lear: Paul Truett, Alexandra Truett, Christopher Berg, Russell Dunn, and Jesse Jones for allegedly grabbing or removing Teresa Borenpol and several other attendees, according to police reports. Norris is not considered a suspect, according to police reports, despite telling Borenpol to leave, grabbing her arms and trying to pull her from her chair and threatening her with pepper spray. Video shows Norris then gestured to the security team, and the men walked over and grabbed Borenpol, telling her to cooperate as Norris stood by, appearing to record the incident on a cell phone. Borenpol came out of the incident with bruising, scratches, and emotional distress caused by Sheriff Norris's actions and the actions of the unidentified men in the claim. The claim also, and this is important, folks, the claim also names KCRCC Chairman Brent Reagan, as I love to refer to him as Dear Chairman of the Politburo, MC of the event, loudmouth himself, Ed Bajarana, and others. Reagan gave statements after the event claiming it was a private when it was actually a public, according to the Coeur d'Alene School District event. First Amendment free speech rights are generally more protected during public events as opposed to meetings conducting official business. Today is the first step in the civil legal system for pursuing justice for Teresa and holding Lear Asset Management and Sheriff Norris responsible for the disturbing events that happened at the town hall. We have put the county on notice that its public officials intentionally obstructed Teresa's constitutional rights and physically assaulted her in the process. So this claim is starting at $5 million. She has retained local former U.S. Attorney Wendy Olson, who won a recent defamation case against Summer Bushnell, and Jeremy Loken, who was served a search warrant for recording this event and looks like possibly not being truthful to detectives. Interesting, he was the same one that altered the video, claiming that the drag performer's genitals were exposed during a drag event. Both he and Summer were shown to not be truthful.
Yeah, Jeremy Loken has his fingerprints on a lot when it comes to KCRCC and people who are associated with that. I know he's also does videography for charity Kootenai Journal.
Yeah.
And I was reviewing some video today from that interview that we documented back at the beginning of your campaign. And it was just a reminder that, and there's Jeremy again. So he's a familiar face.
So Norris is going to be facing quite the civil lawsuit. And I think that he is going to be in a lot of hot water. So he may or may not be held criminally accountable. We'll see if the AG wants to appoint an investigative group and whether or not they recommend any charges. But remember, as an elected sheriff, he could be indicted. He could be charged. He could be convicted of misdemeanors and some felonies and still remain sheriff. This is where the understanding of how important the office of the sheriff should be to all of you. Now, there's this misnomer that only the coroner can arrest a sheriff, and that is technically true, but that doesn't mean that others cannot start an investigation and see it through, and that's done usually through the Idaho State Police. I'll conclude by this. There was a press release put out by Under Sheriff Brent Nelson on Monday, I believe it was the 24th of February, 2 days after this event. I may have my timelines slightly mixed up, but in this press release, Brent Nelson said that there is a investigation happening right now, a independent investigation on Sheriff Norris's actions. And to date, nobody, and I mean nobody, seems to know anything about who is doing this independent investigation. Whether it's another sheriff's office in a nearby county, whether it is a local police department or the Idaho State Patrol. So we could take the entire criminal aspect and say maybe nothing will happen. But guess what? When it comes to a federal civil rights lawsuit, Bob Norris, my prediction, is going to lose very, very badly. And he's going to need every bit of his $187,000 a year disability retirement from Los Angeles and anything else that he can get from Kootenai County. So we're going to be watching this with bated breath. Now, his one existing defamation case that he is currently a defendant in, he was supposed to have a hearing today. And there was already a delay, a change in judges. The original judge, I believe, was going on vacation or switched to another magistrate. This has been known for several weeks, if not months, that this magistrate was going to be overseeing this case. And at the 11th hour, it's our understanding from reports we received today that they were informed that the judge disqualified himself. I'm not certain the reason, don't know the details, but pretty bad in my opinion as the Collinson group to be ready to go to this hearing so that they could start developing their final strategy for trial, only to have a judge at the very last minute. I personally don't know the details, but at the cover view of it, it looks pretty bad. It looks extremely unprofessional for a judge. I mean, that judge should have known months ago or weeks ago that there was a conflict of interest. So my guess is that Ms. Collinson's attorney is going to seek a venue outside of the county, someplace where maybe some justice can be served. So we'll be watching with you with bated breath.
A reminder, we've got a segment coming up. It's Pride and Pride. Mm-hmm. Pride and Pride. That's going to be a fun one, so you got to stick around for that. I want to remind you of our affiliate Midday Squares. These are delicious. This flavor here is peanut butter chocolate bar. These are functional snacks. You can have morning, noon, or night. Replace that nighttime snack before you go to bed. You don't need the bowl of ice cream. You just need this delicious, tasty treat full of good natural ingredients. They have to remain refrigerated, so that's a clue. Dan and I's favorite is the chocolate chip cookie dough. Because it tastes just like chocolate chip cookie dough. Maybe not quite as sweet, which is fine by me. So the link to get 15% off these delicious Midday Squares is in the comment section. 15% off your entire order, and that's a way that you can help support the program.
Now I'm seeing some comments. Brooke, you know how much I really think of you and Dave and how much I appreciate your dedicated support last year. But again, we are going to have a difference of opinion on the Summer Bushnell trial. And I tried talking with you personally about this. We haven't connected yet, but you have to take out all of your emotion. Your emotion is what's driving you to look at this case incorrectly. And as conservatives, we have to hold ourselves up to a standard. And that standard means that we have to be truthful. That we cannot, because we are opposed in this case, because Summer was opposed, like I would be, to a drag show that is being performed in a public park in front of children. I personally don't want to see that. It was lawful at the time for this individual to do this. But the worst part is to take a video and to doctor that video and then to continually double down and to be untruthful. Now, when it comes to, let's talk about the trial. The judge told those in attendance that were the jury to disregard, as I recall, I may have some of my facts incorrect, but to disregard your beliefs on Christianity and morality and homosexuality, as well as what you think about, maybe that was it. But you have to understand that had nothing to do with whether or not it's lawful to perform drag in front of children. It was 100% about defamation of an individual that, the best I can tell from what I've read of Summer's own testimony versus what she said in the beginning, leads me to believe, until somebody can compel me with other evidence, that she 100% lied. She did not recant, even though she was given the opportunity, and she defamed an individual. And in this country, whether or not you agree with somebody's morals or not, you must stick to the truth. And it was appropriate for a judge to say, it doesn't matter what your belief is about lifestyles or what your religious affiliation is. We are here 100% to decide whether or not this individual was defamed, and defamed per law in Idaho. So I'm more than happy to sit down and drill into that more, but I am not going to bend a knee to those that continually want to promote Summer Bushnell as being a bastion of truth. She is not. She just isn't. Until somebody shows me other evidence to refute that, I'm not going to move from my position. And I'm going to say this in all lovingness. As conservatives, we do not get the right to lie or mislead. It damages our brand far greater than whatever you think you're going to, whatever you're going to gain from getting people whipped up towards a controversy that is a much bigger question. So
you've got a couple people saying, and Brooke saying she saw the unedited video. Did you? And then Mike Marcourt, people who have seen portions of that performance that say, look, I saw it. It was disgusting. But talk to us why it isn't a matter of whether or not it should be happening at all, whether or not it should be happening in front of children, whether or not men should dress up as women and do drag shows, or that we don't want in our county. That is not specifically what this is about. No. And that's where we're getting off course.
So show me the video. Show me the video where, by definition of law, those areas of a body that must be not exposed, that must be covered in public, show me where anything that should be covered in public was uncovered. And if you're going to use the argument that the tights that the dude was wearing were so tight that you could see the outline of their genitals, then you have to make the same argument for any female that's on a beach inside the city limits, that's out on Lake Coeur d'Alene wearing a bikini. I mean, we have specific decency laws for a reason. But just because, again, you can see the outline, show me in the Idaho statute that is unlawful. Again, I don't want to see it. I personally do not want to see drag shows. I don't want to see heterosexual erotic dance shows in public in front of kids. This has nothing to do about whether or not it's decent for any sexual type of, parading or act is acceptable in public. I believe it's not. I'm not for it. It has everything to do with what is truthful, and we have to hold ourselves to a high standard and work to change things through the legal process rather than not telling the truth about something. And I'm not alone. There are many conservatives right here in Cooney County that agree with me. They've seen the video. I've not seen it. I haven't seen it that I can recall recently. I may have seen the original once, but I've seen the blurred out version. And again, Even Summer, in her own testimony, said that what she said was not accurate. So, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
I guess.
And Casey, if you got your so let's think about this one more time, guys. If this is such a solid case, why is she having to represent herself on the appeal? Where are all of the mega attorney groups that are looking to represent people that have great cases? People like Summer. Where are they? Why have they not approached her and said, you know what, we're going to take over your legal fees. We're going to represent you. That needs to be explored. And that's a clue as to why I think that she's on shaky ground. I think that those that are part of the legal profession, those that are attorneys, know that she has a very weak case. So again, I will remain open-minded. And if something changes my mind, that's fine. But you guys have to understand that if you lie about something, if you embellish it, there are consequences. It has nothing to do with about whether or not I'm a conservative or not. Truth is the truth.
Oh, you got to. We'll move on beyond this because we have some other great things to cover. But a couple of people saying, "Look, I've seen the unedited video. It looked like genitals hanging out to me." So could it be, that the video evidence was not presented in court? And then why would Summer Bushnell contradict herself and say that she didn't see what she said she saw? Those were statements that I don't remember.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to come tonight to speak with this, so I don't have exact statements to place up. But again,
it was in an interview. And
it was a quote. It was a quote taken from her testimony.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're going to move on. We're going to talk right now about pride versus pride.
Okay. Oh.
Here's another one that's going to get you really, really whipped up.
Okay. I wasn't 100% ready for that.
We'll go to slide. When you're ready, we'll roll that in.
We're just going to have a little break here, let you soak this in. Pride and Pride, starring Boise Mayor Lauren McLean and Idaho State Representative Heather Scott. Okay, you go right ahead.
I think I saw it once. I think I was forced to watch that.
Give him some time. You were forced to watch. Come on.
So
now.
if you are in Idaho and watching any social media, whether it's on X or Instagram or Facebook, you have no doubt heard about the showdown between the Idaho State Legislature and the mayor, Lauren McCann. Is it McLean? McCann?
I saw McLean.
Yeah. Mayor of Boise, who has been in defiance for 10 years, I've been told, so maybe I'm off, but 10 years approximately, flying at Boise City Hall the pride flag. And she's making a statement. It's interesting to me that the people in Boise have not voted her out yet. It doesn't seem like there's enough conservatives that want to either run a better candidate or want to take her to task. I'm not certain exactly what the issue is there. So we have this situation. We have Representative Heather Scott, who I like. I think Heather is a good woman. Mm-hmm. I've had conversations with her.
Yep.
So Heather and friends, understand I'm not attacking you personally, but I am calling out what I call kabuki theater. So we know that this flag issue has been going on at Boise City for quite a while. And once you know that this year, Representative Heather Scott, she's my representative right here in North Idaho. The liberals hate her tremendously. Those that are moderates don't like her very much either from the way I understand it. But she introduces a bill into the legislature, and it's House Bill 96. I'm going to read it just real quick here. We're on, I think it's page 2 of that slide. The bottom line is that they are going to set the limits for what kind of flags can be flown at any state, local, meaning city or county, government buildings. And it's going to be restricted to only government type flags. So you can't do the pride flag, you can't do the Appeal to Heaven or any other religious flags. And notice that part of this amended bill states that in an emergency existing thereof, which emergency is hereby declared to exist, this act shall be in full force and effect on and after its passage and approval. So they want this to be retroactive. The minute they sign it, they want it to be retroactive and to apply immediately. Now, the problem is that they amended this bill, but they did not assign one single penalty. There is no enforcement function. So we're going to listen a little bit to what I believe is the varying stories, the varying reason as to why Representative Heather Scott says that this bill that's unenforceable was put before the House and the Senate to vote on and passed and signed by the governor. So the purpose of the bill is this legislation would allow government entities to only display certain types of flags. So they didn't go into great detail as to why this needed to be done. So we're going to watch a video of Representative Scott introducing this legislation. I want you to listen just to a couple minutes of her presentation before the committee. And then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about it.
Representative Heather Scott, District 2. Before you today is RS 31956. What this legislation would do is it would allow governments to only display certain types of flags. And it's just going to be setting some policy on what we want to see and what we don't want to see in our government offices. If you look online, let's just see, line 9.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop
government
this. We're not going to go through the
means
entirety.
the state of Idaho, any county.
The crux of what I want you to hear is she just said this is going to be voted on and adopted, amended, so that they could set some policies. Okay? Be very, very clear on the intent of why she said they needed to pass this legislation. Now, for those of you that want to go and find this, it's from January 23rd, and you can find it on the state website. Download the whole 8-minute video yourself. There's not much there, but I will tell you at no time was there a discussion as to what prompted this need to change flags. I'm going to say it again for those that are hard of listening or in the back of the crowd. I personally do not want any other flags flying on any of our taxpayer buildings other than official business. You know, Old Glory, the Idaho state flag, and a few other exceptions. So just to frame this, I want you to understand what my position is right now. I think that Mayor McLean flying it, well, we're going to talk about this here in a second. But remember that there was no indication as to why this law, if you will, had to be amended. Remember that she says policy. So we're going to go to our slides, and we're going to show a couple things here that you guys need to be aware of as we're talking about this pride versus pride. Pride of the mayor flying the pride flag and the pride of Republicans who introduced and passed lousy legislation. And I can't say this enough. Lousy legislation. Personal belief. You're not going to change my mind on it. I've already looked at both sides of this. You guys all online, we're outraged. We need immediate action right now. Where is the sheriff? Where is Raul Labrador? Why aren't you enforcing? And by the way, when it was brought up by people like me that there is no enforcement of this bill or of this law, there is no penalties, then I was met with, well, you know what? There's a special section of Idaho Code 18. And if you drill down, you can figure out exactly how you can go after this mayor for defying the order. Because, of course, as soon as it became law, she took the flag down for a day and then put up a bigger, newer flag. And then, of course, we're seeing the shenanigans of those that are saying, hey, we're going to go change it out ourselves. We're going to put the Appeal to Heaven flag up. But everybody wanted Raul Labrador to act. Now, Raul Labrador, I'm extremely impressed with what his response is. He wrote a press release, and he says, this is page 4 of my slide. Many Idahoans are justifiably outraged by the city of Boise's decision to fly 2 flags on government property that appear to violate state law. I hear you, and you are absolutely right to call this out, demand answers, and hold your leaders accountable. That's how a government earns the trust of the people. Now listen closely. Some have criticized me for not using Idaho's criminal statutes to act against the mayor of Boise. I want to be clear and directly address those concerns and explain why the law does not allow for criminal prosecution in this situation. I've heard calls to invoke Idaho Codes 18315. That statute applies only when a public official willfully fails to perform a duty clearly assigned by law. House Bill 96, which governs governs the display of flags on government property, limits what flags may be flown, but it does not assign enforcement authority to any specific public official. Without that, Idaho Code 18315 does not apply. For those of you that are from Rio Lindo and have relocated up to Kootenai County or into Idaho, or you're just dense, I'm going to read that again. It does not assign enforcement authority to any specific public official. Without that, Idaho Code 18315 does not apply. So all of you armchair quarterback attorneys in the room, the Attorney General, a Republican, has said, you guys are out of your minds. It does not apply. Others have pointed to House Bill 6, which takes effect July 1st of 2025. While it expands the Attorney General's investigative authority over city officials, it applies solely to violations of state criminal law. House Bill 96 does not create a criminal offense for flying an unauthorized flag, nor does any other Idaho statute cover this conduct. So, House Bill 6 will not apply. I'm on page 5. Let me be perfectly clear. I will not follow the reckless partisan examples set by the New York Attorney General in her political pursuit of President Trump. I will not weaponize the law. My duty is to enforce Idaho's laws as they are written, not as some might wish them to be. The bottom line is this: I cannot prosecute conduct that is not a crime, and I will not distort or stretch Idaho law to invent one. What I can do, and am actively doing, is reviewing every available civil legal option under Idaho law in response to this situation. I will always stand up for the Constitution, for Idaho, and for the laws passed by our legislature, but I will do so with integrity, impartiality, and unwavering commitment to the rule of law. I'm grateful that Idahoans care deeply about our values and the integrity of our government. Keep demanding accountability, keep insisting on transparency, and I strongly encourage you to make your voices heard directly to the mayor of Boise. She needs to hear from you. So good on Attorney General saying, I'm not going to be creative with the law to enforce something that the original bill makers did not think enough of or didn't think it was necessary to put into the law for us to be able to enforce it. And I say good on him.
Yeah, I mean, this comes back to something you've been talking about a long time, that we've lost a cultural battle, and we are trying to remedy that with legislation. And so it isn't that you don't agree that we've lost a cultural battle that is contrary to even your personal worldview for flying a gay pride flag in the first place. Yeah. But was pushing for that legislation and passing that the way to backpedal and fix all of this when we've already lost the cultural battle.
Well, I think as we go on, Heather Scott, our representative, who I do like, and Heather, I'm sorry that I'm having to disagree with you, but we're going to listen to some of your, what I would call, nonsensical arguments. And we're going to let you out there also listen to what she has to say. Now, she was reported in a Substack. I don't have the source right now. I'll have to find it again. I somehow, when I copied and pasted, did not find it. But I did post it today on my Twitter, on my X account, asking Heather Scott to confirm whether or not the statements were true. As of the time of this broadcast, I had not received any response. So we are going to assume at this point that these quotes are accurate. Tommy Thompson, who is writing this, is talking about Representative Heather Scott, the sponsor of a recently passed bill banning the pride flags from government buildings. Again, I'm on page 7. Has offered a series of increasingly creative explanations for why the bill includes no penalties for breaking the ban. At a press conference outside the State House Thursday, Scott began by describing the omission as a deliberate strategy, okay? The omission of enforcement and penalties. This is what she's saying her strategy is. We're taking a soft launch approach, she explained. Think of it like a new restaurant opening. You don't want to scare people off with too many rules right away. You just want them to know the vibe.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
What do you guys think when you hear a representative, a conservative representative, respond when questioned why they failed to put legislation, the penalties into their legislation, and their question on it? What kind of an answer is that? By the way, Senator Lenny, I have a screenshot, said, well, you know, had they put the penalties in, they know they could not have gotten this bill passed. Mm-hmm. So they just wanted to do an incremental bill in order to arrive at their eventual end goal. She goes on to say, when further pressed, Scott pivoted to a more philosophical defense. Quote, look, penalties are so punitive, unquote. She said, gesturing vaguely towards the sky. Quote, we're trying to foster a culture of compliance through gentle suggestion. It's like when you tell your kids to clean their room, but you actually don't check if they did it. You just hope for the best, unquote. Okay. Okay, Heather, oh man, okay. Plus, she added, quote, the founding fathers didn't need a penalty clause to make people follow the Constitution. They just knew it was serious. Same thing here, unquote. Okay, Heather, that if you truly said that, I have to say that is one of the most dumbest things I have ever heard a state legislator and somebody like you that should know better to say something that stupid. I hope like crazy that you were misquoted and I could come on here and set the record straight. But if you said that, you win the award for dumbest quote from a state legislator. The founders who fought to ratify the Constitution over several years after amending it with the Bill of Rights. Why did they follow it? Not just because they knew it was serious. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I think they did it because once they ratified it, it was binding, and to not follow it would be considered treason. Now, I don't know. I was a homeschool kid, so maybe I don't understand the way things work, but that is one of the stupidest comments I've ever heard. And again, I pray that you were misquoted. Last quote from this article. As the debate rages on, Scott remained unfazed. She says, quote, this is just the beginning, unquote. She said with a smile, quote, next session, we might add penalties or we might not. Who knows? That's the beauty of a representative republic. So I posted on X a couple days ago. I reposted Misty for Liberty, who again, they're trying to argue with Labrador as if the Attorney General doesn't understand the law, doesn't have a team of attorneys advising him, but all you back chair quarterbacks, you backseat drivers, you armchair quarterbacks apparently know better. So I said, fascinating that people are now taking it out on the AG, but not on the lawmakers who just passed this law without any penalties. It's as if they did it on purpose. When will we, as conservatives, hold our own accountable for their actions instead of projecting onto everyone else? So Representative Scott responded yesterday. I want you to listen. You already heard what she said previously. You heard that it was for policy when she went before the subcommittee. And then she said, hey, soft approach, doesn't have to be punitive. Penalties are punitive, whatever. She responds to me, lawmakers shouldn't have to put a penalty into law for every directive given to government. There should be a presumption that government should follow the law. If this were not the case, our codes would be thousands of pages of penalties. Also remember, penalizing government means making the taxpayers pick up the tab. Are you guys following this logic? Is this what we, as the so-called torchbearers of liberty in North Idaho, have succumbed to? Instead of admitting that what you did, and I'm going to call it because this is the way I see it based on the evidence I have at hand. Number one, you knew, Senator Lenny even reiterated this, that you knew you couldn't put penalties in it because it wouldn't pass. You're at war with the mayor of Boise. That's very obvious. She's at war with you. Your ideologies are not on the same page. You float this through, and now you have created a firestorm because all of the social media immediate warriors, and you know who all you are, have jumped on. How dare the mayor disregard the law? Well, yeah, but you didn't assign any penalty. And to use a stupid statement saying that you should think that, government would abide by rules. I mean, that is, again, a dumb statement. Why do we have all of the laws? Why do we have laws about record retention? Why do we have sunshine laws, Heather? And Madison said this, if men were angels, government would not be needed. But seriously, what you did is you created this because you knew the optics were going to do exactly what they did. You were going to galvanize, polarize your base in Idaho. And instead of spending resources to replace this mayor with a good candidate, with the powerhouse that the Idaho GOP supposedly is, instead you create these false laws, these arguments, these half-assed things, and then you stand back and go, well, gee, I don't understand why they're not obeying the law. If there was no consequences for speeding, do you think people would just randomly obey the speed limit? I mean, come on, we have example after example after example. Do better, Republicans. Do better, those that claim that you're holding the torch of liberty. Hold yourself accountable. Acknowledge when you're wrong, own it, describe why you're wrong, and move on. We are losing faith because for every good thing you do, you guys do 3 or 4 stupid other things. And why is it nobody around here except for Dan Wilson seems to be the one that's vocally calling people out for bad behavior? I don't want to have these conversations because I would hope that our representatives were smart enough and fair enough to do what they need to do to maintain the rule of law and the way our government works. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing is very disappointing. And here's another one I'm going to throw in here, and we'll talk about this a little more at another time. Senator Phil Hart. It is my understanding that after he stole timber in Athol to build his house and had a judgment against him, my understanding is he never paid the penalties for the stolen timber. And I offer Senator Hart to come on this show if he wants to articulate as to where I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I want to know that.
Now, I read that today because that was in a 2010. That was back in 2010. And I had actually, before today, never taken the time to read his statements and what actually happened there. So it was public lands. The timber on that land was to go to public education. He decided to cut down some timber to build his home in this area, and said he was told by a couple of other loggers, this is what we've always done. It's fine. And so that was the reasoning behind it. So he wasn't denying that he did it and that it happened, but it was just that he received bad advice at the time. And then my understanding is it exceeded the statute of limitations. So he didn't have to repay it. It's one of those things like, now this is the suggestion, but this is what people, if we're talking about saying here are rules, and if you break them, there's no penalty. Yeah. We have one of our own who says, well, there's no penalty. And if it's just a suggestion that I repay this, excess of $15,000, well, that was just a suggestion. So as far as we understand to today, that money has not been repaid.
I want to know why. If somebody in authority said you have to pay, I want to know why you are so exceptional that you don't have to pay your debt back, but yet you have the ability to draft legislation and represent us here in North Idaho while you're parading around dressed like a Continental Soldier or a Minuteman. I don't know. I mean, I saw lately you posted a picture with, who was it? It was Heather Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got somebody in the comment section that can probably put that. Why don't you go ahead and plop that photo into the comment section and share it for everybody that's
Which
joining
one is
us
that?
tonight.
Where's that photo?
No, well, I don't have it handy, so I thought we've got somebody in the comment section. I think probably will have that handy if you can drop it in there.
Yeah, I take exception, and again, I hope that I'm proven wrong. I'm publicly stating what many of us want to know. Again, a KCRCC vetted individual, right? Promoted. He's now been elected 2 times. Has it been 2 times since he re-ran again?
I think so.
I think he started in 2022.
Yeah.
So we want to know. We're going to hold every conservative or person that calls themselves conservative accountable, because there is no leadership anymore. There is only, we are going to force everybody to do what we believe to be right, violating the principles of the Republican Party and the Constitution. Morally, you're doing things that aren't correct. So I don't care. I will call you out. And I will call you out no matter who you are. You can be my friend for a long time. I will call you out. Likewise, if somebody comes and compels me that I am wrong, I will own it, because that is what men of what I would say liberty as well as integrity do. I'm reminded of that verse. He who walks with integrity walks securely, but he who makes his paths crooked will be found out. So my bottom line, and we're going to go to the very last page on that slide that I had up, is a quote by Jefferson. And I want you guys to think about this as it relates to what we just talked about with the weird legislation. Thomas Jefferson says, the execution of the laws is more important than the making of them. Now, I've already done enough commentary. I'll let you come to your own conclusions. You can look that up and find out what he was arguing with and when, and you can come to your own conclusions as to what that means. But look, folks, I love liberty. And the only way that we are going to hold liberty is if we hold ourselves to a high standard, a standard of integrity, a standard of willing to do the right thing, not just force our way. Because, by the way, we may hold, as conservatives, as Republicans, we may hold the majority right now, but it won't always be that way. And everything that you do now, whether it is making up weird ways to enforce a law that's unenforceable, you may find yourself the victim in a few years of an out of control, unaccountable government that is equally now attempting, because the precedent has been set, to go after you, to be creative on how they can persecute you. You guys know that we're always just one sliver, one blade away from losing liberty. We cannot lose it because of lack of integrity, lack of doing the right thing, which also means standing up for somebody's civil rights, even if we don't align, even if we think they're obnoxious, even if we think that they are not doing the right thing most of the time. It demands that we stay with high fidelity to the Bill of Rights and to the Constitution. And so I want to encourage you guys to be strong and courageous. Remember the founders, remember their dedication. They dedicated their lives and their fortunes. They paid their taxes, I guess.
I think they did. Yeah.
And they pledged their sacred honor. So stay strong and of good courage. I'm certain we'll be here next week to make a few more people upset, but hopefully we make you think today.
Yep. Paid their taxes, paid their debts, admitted when they were wrong. Isn't that what men do?
They did throw tea in the harbor, though.
Oh, yeah.
But they cleaned up afterwards.
Rebels.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. And a special thank you to our affiliate, the delicious Midday Squares. Get 15% off your entire order with the link here in the comment section. That'll also help support this program. Enter to win that Liberty Without Compromise embroidered premium snapback trucker hat on our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. And for any other apparel, shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, your mugs, we've seen those out. You guys look good in the Liberty Without Compromise shirts.
Yeah.
You can purchase those right now at libertywithoutcompromise.com. Just click on that apparel button. Visit our website also. What were you going to say?
No, I cut you off.
Nah, it's nothing. It's nothing.
I want to ask people to pray for a couple individuals that are in desperate need of your intercession. Jim is in the fight of his life. He desperately needs your prayers for healing. Matt is facing difficulties with back surgery coming up. And I ask that you would also pray for Honor. So go ahead.
Visit our website to watch past episodes, libertywithoutcompromise.com. You also want to subscribe to our YouTube channel because Facebook starts to delete those live stream videos after 30 days or so. It's a new policy. So subscribe to the Idaho Sheriff on YouTube. Follow Dan and I over on X. Dan's the Idaho Sheriff. You'll find me. My handle's a little bit different.
The Idaho Sheriff, Dan Wilson.
Come on, argue, April Lee. We got it. For our podcast, listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. See you guys next week.